Would you turn down a publishing deal? Yes, you heard me correctly. Would you turn down a publishing deal? Well, I did. And my guest, Louise Hegarty, who's joining me today for this episode of The Conversation, also turned down a publishing deal. And yes, I know it sounds crazy. But believe me, it's not that unusual. And you're going to find out the reason why and what happened next in this episode of The Conversation with your host, Nadine Matheson. And Louise's new novel, Fair Play, is available now. So if you go down to the show notes, you'll be able to click on the link and buy a copy of her book. And I really hope you enjoy this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've got any suggestions for any other guests you'd like me to interview for The Conversation, just send an email right here. Okay? Enjoy the show. Louise Hegarty, welcome to The Conversation.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So Louise, I was looking at your debut, Fair Play, and because I'd seen it around, which is always a good thing. I'd seen it around because it's got an amazing cover ages and ages before it was published. But I always want to know, like, who was Louise Hegarty before you became Louise Hegarty, debut author?
Well, I suppose, I had a day job up until kind of fairly recently. And what I was doing up until then was I was actually writing short stories, and publishing them in magazines for quite a number of years. And really my whole focus was on short stories until about 2022, which is when I had the idea for Fair Play. And that was kind of like the first like novel shaped idea I had. And I thought I'd kind of give it a go and spent quite a while. It's kind of because of the type of novel it is, there was a bit of like researching or kind of, it had to be kind of plotted quite specifically. So I spent quite a bit of time doing that first and then wrote a first draft pretty quickly in about 3 months.
This is what I was going to ask you, right? Because I was doing my research into you, obviously. And I said to myself, did I read that correctly? Like, did you write a first draft in 3 months whilst also working like full time? Because people will always ask, like, how do you manage both? How do you work and write a book? And you try and give an answer like you just steal time. But, it still took me, I don't know, a year, maybe, as I was doing it as a course. But for you to do it in 3 months.
Yeah, I was writing, I wrote in the afternoons or the evenings and at weekends. And I suppose I just like, you do have to block out that time in your schedule, and that's your writing time, and you have to be kind of precious about it as well.
Yeah.
And it's not a hugely long book. And I think the kind of work I did before that of the plotting and kind of knowing what the structure was and kind of knowing the different parts of it and how I need to get from A to B, like really once you sit down and you actually have to do the typing, it really, really helped to just know where you needed to go from day to day. And I don't know, it kind of just came quickly as well.
It might sound like a strange question, right? But because you were always writing short stories, did it surprise you when you had the idea for a novel and then you actually sat down to not only just write but to complete it? Because it's a different mindset. Because I find short stories hard.
Right. Yeah. It's a very different. Like so much of novel writing is typing. It is just having to sit there and type. And whereas with the short story, you can kind of get a first draft down very quickly because it could just be kind of 2,000-3,000 words. But then, of course, you could spend the rest of your life just moving little things around. And because the short story, everything has to be very tight and everything has to be correct because one thing's out of space, you notice it. Whereas with a novel, it is just the like sitting at your laptop and kind of having to persevere with that as well, It takes longer before you kind of feel that you have a piece of work or something completed or something that you're kind of happy with as such, and you just have to kind of still continue with your word count on a day-to-day basis. That's the main kind of difference for me anyway about short stories and novel writing. And it's what I find difficult about novel writing as well, is you don't get that kind of like instant hit of a short story,
Oh, I wish I got the instant hit. I wasn't getting an instant hit. I was getting an instant hit of pain because I was like, this is hard. How do people do this so freely? And the only reason why I got my head around it, I don't know if I read it. I probably was reading it somewhere because I was doing literally going on Google. How do you write? And I've written novels. Like, how do I write a short story? What's the best way to write a short story? And I read someone said it doesn't need to have like an actual start. It can be like it's a snapshot. So it could be like a snapshot in the middle of someone's day or the actual of the wider story. So once I got that, I was like, oh, okay, like that works for my brain. But before that, oh my God, I was like quivering wet wreck.
Yeah,
It just was not for me.
And it is a completely different form, you know. I think people generally will write one or the other, but it is like you say, it isn't that kind of like specific arc that you would have with a novel. It could be completely different. It's a totally different form, in the same way as poetry is a totally different form.
Yeah.
You know.
When did you know you were a storyteller? Because I always think that you could be a writer. A lot of people, you can have a talent for writing, but being able to tell a story and also pull an audience in. When did you know you could do that?
I mean, I grew up in a household where my parents were really big on reading. So we were always reading. Stories were a big part of our life. And I suppose quite early on, I had this idea of being a writer and like specifically being a fiction writer, like writing books. Like as a small child, I would say I wanted to be a writer. And I think it kind of, I don't know, I suppose when you kind of grow up in a household where you're just reading a lot or you're kind of engaging with the arts, maybe it kind of seems kind of like it's just kind of an obvious kind of thing that you're just kind of engaging with, and you're just telling stories and you're writing small little things. And it wasn't, I mean, I was, in my late teens before I was kind of then thought, okay, I'm actually going to approach this a little bit more seriously and be writing and reading in a more serious way with a view to publication, and then like writing short stories and kind of sending them out. But I always kind of like, I felt kind of, I suppose, drawn to it. Drawn to reading and writing as well, which I suppose not everyone, there's plenty of people who love reading, but they're not particularly interested in writing.
But it's also, there's the other side of it is that, especially coming from like loads of conversations I've had on this podcast, is that the authors they've had a love for books from a young age. And, they were writing their stories from a young age, doing that. And I always say I was there doing my little projects, but you didn't actually know it could be a job for you. And depending on, the environment you grew up in and maybe the school you went to, being a writer and having that as a career, it was never presented to you really.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, there's that thing of, as a child, maybe you kind of like, you don't realize the practicalities of the world. So there is kind of an ignorance is bliss thing of like, oh, I read this book, and maybe it's by an Irish writer, so that's a person in Ireland who is obviously writing books and they're doing that, and so I could do it as well, and not realizing actually how difficult it is and how most people are not going to be able to publish a book or do that work full time. It's the kind of like fantasy thing of childhood, maybe as well. Yeah.
When you was growing up, because when I think of like big Irish writers immediately going to my head. Like the main one's always going to be Marion Keyes. And oh God, I've forgotten the other one. Is it Cecilia Ahern? Like those two. Yeah. It's like, were you aware of them? And like it wasn't just like a regional impact or a national impact. It was like a global impact. Like, were you aware of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is that thing of in Ireland, and we probably take it for granted, like there are so many writers and like nationally and internationally. So it's probably quite like a normal thing that there are a lot of writers and they are famous and they are kind of doing well internationally. And it's maybe only when you're kind of traveling abroad or you're talking to people from elsewhere that you become kind of very conscious of like that view of Ireland and of Irish writers. And I suppose it does, like, there's that thing about being from a small country as well, is that there isn't this huge distance between you and so famous writer. Like they might live near you, your cousin might know them. It kind of gives you like this idea that, and like outside of writing as well, I think it exists within kind of sports and things like that, that you have this access to people, or you can kind of see how that person isn't that very different from me, and maybe I can do that too. And kind of in smaller communities or smaller countries, I think that kind of thing can happen.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Caribbean. So like in
Yeah.
Grenada, so when I was telling you before, like where my family's from, it's like the famous person, whether it's an author or an athlete, cricketer, even a politician. It's like my mum knew the prime minister. Like she had him,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
like he'd come to a restaurant. Like I don't have the
yeah,
prime minister's number on my phone.
yeah,
But it's that fact that they're like a hand distant away, or
yeah.
they are someone's auntie or your neighbour's first
Hmm.
cousin, and they have that
Yeah.
contact. It's that direct access that you have that you say you probably do get in smaller
Mm.
countries. Whereas for me, I suppose living in London, the other side of it, even though they say London's like a series of villages, everyone still does feel. In the absence of social media, everyone just feel really, really distant. So the idea of knowing a writer would be like, oh, it's like knowing a
Yeah.
Hollywood superstar. It just seems like far
Yeah.
fetched.
Yeah.
So, so when you started writing and so you've written Fair Play and you've done it in 3 months, and this is not meant to sound like patronizing, but did you know what to do next?
No. So I just had like a draft. I now have this draft of a novel, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of going over it a little bit. And it is quite like, so I suppose this is kind of happening maybe mid 2022. And I like there was no great plan at this point. And ultimately what happened is at the end of kind of December of 2022, I was contacted by my now agent who had read some short stories and was looking to see if I wanted representation. So at that point I had a chat with her and I said, "Oh, I kind of have like a draft of a novel as well." Um, and I did some like tidying up work on that and sent it to her to read.
Mhm.
And ultimately she liked it. And I, or very early then in 2023, I signed with her. And like if that hadn't happened, I don't know, I probably would still be sitting here with my manuscripts.
Yeah.
There wasn't some great plan at the time. And then ultimately everything happened very, very quickly after that. So, she gave me a couple of like notes or little changes on the manuscript, which I made. And then it went out on submission in April. It was just like before Easter, and then sold like within a week. So there was kind of nothing happening, and then suddenly, very, very quickly, within a couple of months.
I always think it's important for listeners, especially listeners who are, they're writers and they're out there, whether they're on the agent query train or they're out on submission, to know that there are so many different stories as to how authors have got their agent and their route to publication. And sometimes it's taken years. And, I've spoken to authors who have spreadsheets of 70, 80 rejections. I'm like, I'm not doing a spreadsheet. I don't have the patience for doing a spreadsheet. But there are that end of the spectrum where it has taken 80 rejections before they've signed. And then there is the other end of the spectrum, which is me and you're kind of similar, where the agents approached you. And I was asked by my tutor, "Do you have representation?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like, do I have representation? No. And then he gave me his agent's details, and he asked to read it, and then I signed. And then I would say I signed on the 29th. That was signed on my birthday, 29th of January. And then I think I had a deal end of February, beginning of March.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it happened. So I think you said it. It's like nothing happens for a long time. It can feel like, and then in some cases, it's literally like a click of a finger, and it's that quick.
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing how quick it can happen if it is
Yeah.
happening. You can go from 0 to 100 within a couple of weeks. Yeah.
How do you prepare for that though? I know what I did, which was basically just carried on being a lawyer in my head and not deal with it emotionally. I turned into a
Yeah.
robot. But how did you deal with it? Because it can be a lot to take on emotionally and mentally.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I kind of did the same thing as you. I kind of like I didn't like when I went out in submission, I didn't say anything to anybody
Mm.
because I thought I kind of wanted the room to, I like I went out submission and I'm thinking, well, it could be months, like, and you may never hear about it.
Yeah.
So I thought you kind of just want that space that if nothing happens, that's fine. You don't have to be answering questions about it within your personal group, you know? And I kind of just continue. I mean, I still had my day job, and I just kind of went to my day job and just try to kind of continue as
Live
normal.
life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there is kind of like there is like a bit of ignorance is bliss in that I really knew nothing about the publishing industry and how it worked. I didn't understand like going out and submission or auctions or preamps. I didn't understand any of it. And actually, it was probably for the best because it was all just kind of happening, and you're all just getting these emails, and you're kind of nodding along and thinking, "Yeah, that
There's a,
sounds fine. That's grand." Yeah, yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of nodding. I would look at
yeah,
same thing. You'd open the email and you'd be like, okay, all right,
yeah, yeah.
that seems like that seems good.
Yeah, seems
Close
grand.
my phone. I have
Mhm.
no idea
Yeah,
what
yeah,
this means. I don't know what I'm letting myself in for.
yeah. So I think kind of just being like, there's a danger with having too much information. You know, you're
Yeah.
kind of you know a little bit too much, and maybe you're a little bit too anxious about why this is happening and why this other thing isn't happening. Whereas if you're just getting emails about things, you think, yeah, that seems fine.
Yeah, my agent was really good because he said to me in the beginning, how basically like, how do you want to do this? Do you want to know
Mm.
everything? Like
Okay.
every single person I mean, I knew who. I mean, he showed me his list, so I knew what publishers
Mm.
who that the book was being submitted to. But it's like, do you want to know like everything? Like every time you get an email, every time if it's a rejection. And I was kind of like, I want to know, but I'm happy with like a Friday night condensed
Mm.
version email. Like I want to be aware, just by nature, I like to know what's going on. But I didn't need to know every single intricate detail of every phone call and every email because I think it would have been too much, especially when you're trying to carry on with your life because you don't know what's going. You simply have no idea what's going to happen. I said it could go, sink and it just completely sink and disappear, or it could turn into something.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. I think you want to kind of an overview. You kind of want to know what's kind
Yeah,
of going on in general, but you don't want the like minute by minute update of this person doesn't want it and this person does. Yeah.
yeah. And how did? What was that moment like for you? I don't often ask that question. The moment when you got the deal, publishers, we want it. Do you remember what that moment was like for you?
So I suppose it kind of like in some ways it happened. So it went out in submission on a Thursday, and then there was a preempt on a Friday,
Uh,
which I turned down.
Me
But
too.
I was yeah. So
Well,
I
I
was
was
kind of
advised to.
I was advised to turn down. Yeah, the same here. Yeah. And at that point, I suppose like there's a bit of kind of monopoly money about it, and you're kind of it doesn't like
Mm,
none of it seems real, but I suppose at least it's like heartening, like somebody who does is interested in this and they want to publish it. And then there was a second preempt on the Saturday, and I was also advised to turn that down, so I did. And then at that point, there was an auction. Was it like the following week? So there was kind of a deadline for everyone to get in
yeah.
the following week, and then there was various meetings with the publishers involved. And I suppose it is like you're kind of going into it knowing that at least there's like this amount of
There's
um,
interest.
interests, yeah.
Mm.
Um, and but it kind of I don't know. You're still in this kind of like in between period where it doesn't quite seem real yet, or like I'm still not quite telling people, and I'm kind of being kind of cagey about meetings and
Well,
things. But
I think I'm trying to think because mine, like literally, like our stories are so similar. Like
mm,
my agent sent. When did he send? I think he sent it out. No, he sent it out on a Tuesday. We got our first offer on the Friday, which I think we turned. I think we turned it down because then we got a preempt. I think maybe the same. Yeah, we got a preempt. I think maybe the Thursday. Then another offer on the Friday, and I found the preempt thing was strange because my I remember my brother was with me when I got the call about the preempt, and my agent told me the preempt, told me the number, and then he just said we're not taking it, and I'm like, okay. And I told him, I put the phone down. I was like, what? I said, so I told him, he goes, and he said, why aren't we taking it? Like, really? Why are we? Like, it didn't make sense. It's like, why aren't we taking it? And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know, but we're not taking it. And then I went into, an auction
yeah,
and stuff. But yeah, when someone gives you a number, irrespective of what that number is, it could be 10,000, 100,000, and you're thinking it's money. You're like, well, of course we take it. And it
Yeah,
takes a lot
yeah.
for you. You really have to trust your agent at that
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. And that's what I did. And like she was very good at explaining like this is where, you know, she's gone around, she's talked to the other editors that have the manuscript,
Yeah.
she's gotten feedback from them. She kind of knows like what the interest level is. She's chatted to other people in the agency, and like she made it very clear it's up to me ultimately to decide what to do, but this is the feedback that she's getting, and this is how she feels to proceed.
Yeah.
And she was correct. Like everything she told me, it was correct. It was the right way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many stories like even authors who had signed with agents before I'd signed, maybe like a year before, like they're friends of mine, and we were on courses together. And but their whole experience, like it just didn't work out in the sense
Mhm.
that they couldn't rely on their agent. Their agent like wasn't forthcoming, like not returning phone calls and things. So it just goes to show like there's so many different experiences, not
Yeah.
only in publishing, but also with that initial finding an agent and being with the right agent.
Yeah. I mean, like so many things in the publishing industry, it is a relationship.
Yeah.
And it is about kind of building up that relationship with your agent, with your editor, and kind of knowing and hoping that like you're all on the same page. They understand what you're trying to do, and they're going to help and assist and support you
Mm.
in that. But it's the whole thing. It's just relationships, and it's even with the same agent. You might have two writers, one who loves that agent because it's that
Yeah.
relationship that they make sense and it's great, and the other person, it's not working for them at all.
How
Yeah,
do you how do you keep being Louise? Like within all that, like all the chaos
yeah,
of, the submission and having the book out, and then there's that funny pressure you have of now writing your second book because now you're under contractual obligation. It's not just
yeah.
Louise sitting at home just writing a
Yes.
book when she feels like it. But it's like, how do you manage? How do you still be you within the whirlwind?
Um, I mean, like in a lot of ways, some ways my life has changed hugely, and then some ways it hasn't changed at all. I
Mm,
mean, I just, I just treat it like a 9 to 5 job, really.
yeah,
And I'm in the very lucky situation that I can do that, that I can just write now and it just be my one job, and just kind of, just treat it like an everyday job. And it's just kind of a gradual thing of working towards deadlines, and having like a very very ordinary like Monday to Friday, really, which is kind of what I wanted. That I'm not spending my evenings or my weekends writing, that I can just do the thing I want to do, and that's what's going to pay my bills.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's the important thing as well, because because we're recording this towards the end of August, and I took August off because I had to
Mhm.
remind myself, because when I was freelancing as a solicitor, I always try to take August off, because I'm like, you need a break, you're doing back to back stuff and you need to wind down. But when I started writing my books, it just feels like it was taking up all my time and I wasn't thinking about having a break.
Uh-huh.
Like you really have to work hard to say I need to take
Yeah.
my break, or you're kind of conditioned to writing in those stolen moments of time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Any of your like free times become like they're not free times anymore because
Yeah,
that's your writing time. So then you
yeah,
end up with no free time. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So like I said, like how did you keep being Louise? But how did like the people around you respond? Because sometimes it can, not all the time, but sometimes it can affect relationships. Because people have a perspective, they have a certain viewpoint of what being a writer is, and then what it brings
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
they think you're rich and famous.
Yeah. I don't think it's really affected. I haven't had any kind of negative reactions from anybody.
Yeah,
Um, and I think mainly people are just kind of excited, you know. Like it's exciting, like getting the copy of the book first, or seeing it in bookshops.
yeah.
Like I have friends and family who, if they're visiting, they'll go to the bookshop to see the book is there. So I think more people are kind of just excited about all that kind of part of it, rather than I don't think I've had any kind of I don't know if I've had any kind of like weird or any kind of negative reactions about it.
Mm,
Luckily, yeah,
that's a good thing. So
yeah.
now that we're in this
Hmm.
publishing world. What surprised you most about the industry?
I think, like, I mean, in some ways, like everything surprised me because I literally came in. like not knowing anything.
Yeah.
So like everything was new, and everything, and there's like great fun with that because every aspect of it that you're dealing with, like if it's the book cover and you're having conversations about that, or you're being showed like the marketing side of things, or you're
Mm.
doing like book events, like it's all brand new, so it's all like very exciting. Um, and there is kind of a yeah, so it's kind of when things are new, everything is interesting, exciting, I think.
Were you able, to deal with the public side of it, being an author? Because I don't know what your previous job was before, but it is a new, it is completely different. If that is not
Mhm.
what you've ever done, that public facing side of being an author. Were you able to deal with that easily?
Um, I I found it at the start quite anxiety inducing. I mean, definitely like being in front of people or speaking or
Mm,
kind of being on a stage or anything like that. I mean, that wouldn't be my preference,
yeah,
but I've actually found that you get very used to it actually. And I definitely wouldn't get kind of anxious about doing any events. And I think it's kind of, I suppose that's one of the things that I found, even though it's not the kind of part of the job that I like the most or that I'd be kind of drawn to, that actually it's fine. It's grand. I can do it.
yeah,
And I've grown very used to it, and you kind of figure out how to do it. And I think I've gotten kind of better at it as well as it goes
yeah.
along. Um, but that is a kind of a like when you spend so long, you're just writing, and it's very you're just by yourself and you're just on your laptop, having to then kind of emerge from your, from your like self isolation and then like talk about your book and kind of appear at things. It is a huge change, definitely.
It's like you're in hibernation. You're literally like a bear.
Mm,
You're
yeah.
just in hibernation, just you and that book, and then you come out blinking into the daylight, and then there's this expectation for you to be like to perform in a
Hmm.
weird way. Whereas what you're used to doing is simply performing on the page, and then to feel
Yes.
like you have to then perform on stage. Some people find it really, really, really hard. And even those where it looks easy, it still takes a bit of a mental
Yeah.
gymnastics to get you there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I found I was kind of worried about it myself at the start,
Mm,
but I you kind of get into like a rhythm with it. And like I say now, I kind of do any events now, and I'm never really worried or kind of anxious beforehand. I've gotten
yeah,
very used to it. Yeah.
yeah. So when Fair Play came out, or just before it comes out, so we're talking about those first few weeks before publication day. Did you have an idea of what success would mean to you, or would you just have been happy? You're just happy to know it's going to be out there on the shelf.
Yeah, no, the idea of it being in like a bookshop, you could go into a bookshop and it would be there. I mean,
Mm,
that's kind of success. It being out there, and I had no expectations of what was going to happen beyond that. And it was just the idea of it being published, and kind of more than that, I suppose, about ultimately this being kind of a sustainable career for me. That like I
yeah.
can continue to write, I can continue to publish, I can continue to. This is just is being my job. I mean, that's success. I think really.
No, the idea of like not being able to do this like I say full time and not have it. This is the thing that pays my bills and gives me a nice life and allows me to go on holiday. I don't want to go back to what I was doing before. So,
Mhm.
like, as you said, success for me will be the same. It's about sustainability, and anything that comes on top of that. I don't know. It's just like getting an extra packet of sweets in my shopping by mistake. It's like, oh, it's a little
Yeah,
bonus.
exactly. It's a little bonus, anything extra.
Yeah,
But it just being the day to day job. That's the success of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, when I was doing my googling about you, I always hate saying that because it really does make me feel like I've just been stalking the internet trying to find everything about Louise Hegarty. And I just liked it. And I was reading your interview in the Irish Examiner, and you said I've been telling people that I've been training for this for 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, and I meant that partly as in terms of like reading and writing and always, and I
Yeah,
suppose, but in particular with fair play, it has this kind of murder mystery element to it, or kind of uses like the structure of a murder mystery. And that was growing up. That's what I read. That's what my parents read. We read, watched Poirot and Miss Marple on television. And it's then, I mean, it's one of those things when you actually then years and years later are kind of having an idea for a novel, you realize, oh, it's those television shows that I was watching as a
Yeah,
child,
yeah.
or those books that I was reading as a teenager, that's kind of the basis, that's the inspiration, that's the kind of the foundations of this work that I'm now doing as an adult. It's kind of like a funny thing where like those ideas and those kind of inspirations kind of come from. Like you
Mm.
can never really tell. Something just kind of pops up. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, that was from 10 years ago or something, Yeah.
Yeah, it's always comes back to that question when you're asked like what inspired you. And I always feel like sometimes they want whoever asks the question, they're looking for like a specific moment in time. So it was 12:30 on a Thursday afternoon whilst you were walking through the park and this moment just sparked in your head and it was because you saw a similar situation. And sometimes it's just not like that at
No.
all. It's an accumulation of maybe like experiences and
Mm.
interactions and scenarios that you've been involved in that then come together at some random moment. Well, probably while you are walking to the bus stop. And then that creates that gives you the story idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm kind of surprised sometimes in my writing where I'll realize, oh yeah, that was something that happened ages ago, or that was something I read or I watched ages ago. That was probably kind of in the back of my mind. I wasn't really thinking
Yeah,
about it. But then in your writing it comes out and you're realizing the connections between everything. But like you say, it's the accumulation of life
yeah.
experiences and kind of inspiration. I don't know if I ever really have that kind of eureka moment of, this
No.
obvious point. Yeah.
No, I would say I will probably get a eureka moment. Maybe when I hesitate to say writer's block now. Maybe when I'm stuck and I've moved
Mhm.
away, I've walked away from whatever I'm working on and I'm doing something completely different and unrelated. And then suddenly the solution just arrives. And you're like, oh, that's what I need to do. So I think those are the cool like eureka moments. But
Mhm.
the initial spark of inspiration as to what what is the genesis of a story. I mean, that can come from anything because I've read something. I've been scrolling through Instagram
Yeah.
and I think one moment, I think the last book I was out on the walk and I saw a poster on like the community notice board, and I was like, oh, huh, interesting,
Mhm.
and it sticks in your head, and then that gives birth to the story.
Yeah. I find quite often, like if I read something or if I notice something, I'll just take like a little note of it, and I have a place where
Yeah,
I kind of keep notes. And then I find, and it could be months later, it could be years later, you're realizing after a while you're kind of collecting a lot of thoughts around the same theme. And I
mm,
feel like that's where again, it's like a subconscious thing of, at the back of my mind, I'm obviously returning to something that is interesting me, that intrigues me for some reason. I don't quite know why yet, but I have all these like different articles or little notes or books or movies or whatever that are all kind of around the same thing. And I think, okay, there's obviously something there that interests me. I need to spend more time with them. And hopefully then they will kind of form the basis of something now that I want to write.
yeah. So I mentioned the wall, like hitting that writing wall.
Mhm.
Have you ever hit it? And like, what have you done to like move
Yeah,
past it?
I think going for a walk is definitely the big thing. I think you need to kind of step away from your laptop or from
Yeah,
your notebook and kind of like allow your brain to do a bit of kind of problem solving for you. Going for a walk, suddenly I'll have solved that issue for myself. Or even like if you've got kind of chores to do around the house. I think it's something about kind of slightly disconnecting from the work you're doing, kind of focusing on something else and maybe something physical as well. And then your brain in the background is all kind of like solving all of your problems for you.
yeah.
I definitely think that there's only so much kind of sitting at your laptop you can do. I think you need to kind of step away.
I think
Um,
yeah, it's that moment of just staring at it and staring at it, and
mhm.
you're just hoping that the words are going to miraculously, like,
Yes.
just fix themselves, and it's not
Yes.
happening. And the longer you sit there, I think that's what causes the frustration and causes the block. It's like that you're
Mm,
forcing it, you're waiting
yeah.
for this miracle to happen, and it's not happening.
Yeah. And I think you're only making it worse. You're only making yourself paranoid that you're not now going to be able to finish this. And you just need to accept you've done whatever work at your laptop that you can do today, and you need to step away and like go for a walk, go outside, think about something else, put on some music, and like even if it's late at night, go to sleep. You will wake up in the morning. You'll wake up in the morning and you will have the answer. You know, there is kind of your brain is great at problem solving, so you kind of need to let the brain kind of problem solve, while kind of doing something else to distract yourself.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh. Like if you're writing, if you're in any writings group, whether it's like a personal WhatsApp group or like one on Facebook, guaranteed someone's going to say, I've got a very, very clean house at the moment, because that moment of
Yeah,
procrastination, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't want to do this. Like I can't do this. What can I do?
yeah,
And you're clean. Like my house is very, very clean. It's like what else can I do?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. Yeah.
Like Louise, there's a question, right? I have another I don't know, I never know what to call it. Another segment of this podcast called Coffee Break. So it's an extra podcast I do. And one of the questions I ask, and I just thought I'd ask you, is what's the most random fact you now know because of your book? So when you because you do obviously we do our research. What's the
Oh,
most random fact you know about fair play?
oh my God, that's such a good question, and I'm sure I have. Um, well, I suppose I don't know if this is. I like there is a detective character, and at the start of the first part, we're kind of introduced to him, and we're told about the first crime that he ever solved.
Yeah.
But he solved it on a ferry that goes from Tallinn in Estonia to Helsinki in Finland,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize there's a very short ferry. I think it takes like 50 minutes or something that kind of joins up the two countries. And I really want I really want
You want to go?
to travel on it. Yeah, yeah. But I never realized that there was a little ferry. Of course, it makes sense. I mean, if you look at it in the map, they're very close together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love this question. It's such a fun question because it's never like I always expect it to be, like I say, it's like something historical, and it never is.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
with this question, it's always something. As I said, it's random, which is like the fun part of
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
So another thing, so thinking about your career, like and where you are, like now, it's like what piece of advice do you wish you'd been told earlier in your life about being a writer, being a published, not just being a writer, but being a published writer and being like a career writer.
Yeah. I think there's stuff to do with. I suppose it took me quite a while to. I suppose this is quite a common thing with a lot of people that the first draft of anything is just about getting the words down on
Mm,
page, and it's about kind of not being a perfectionist about it. It is going to be crap, and everyone's first draft is crap, and you kind of need to accept like the embarrassment of the crapness of what you've written, because it's the drafts after that that you're actually going to make whatever it ultimately ends up being. And I think
yeah.
there's that kind of like letting go of perfection, letting go of being great from the get-go, which can really kind of get in the way then of like just doing the job, you know. um, and I think that's probably quite a common thing with people, and I think it's probably quite a common reason that people don't continue with writing, or find writing difficult, or can't kind of get past a certain point, because they have an expectation that the first thing that you're typing down needs to be like of a standard,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. It's just about getting the words on the page. The actual work is going to be done in the drafts and the editing that you get on from now on.
I think once you like realize, because you think is you can be told that, but once you actually like
Mm,
recognize it and absorb it and accept it, it makes your writing journey like it's not going to make it completely 100% an easy ride, but it makes those initial stages where you're questioning every single thing. It makes it so much easier. Because I always say to people like I would, my glasses are dirty, but I would never my agent never sees my first draft. My agent never
mm,
sees my like no one sees my first draft because my
mhm.
first draft is an absolute mess. It's terrible. But all it is for me is just like I just need to get the story down and know exactly I mean, I always know I always have an outline, but just get the story down in some shape or form and establish like who the characters are and how how everyone's moving in the world in this story. And it's absolutely fine. Which for me, if I change the killer, all the love interest, if all these things change as the novel progresses, I'm like, it's fine because it's supposed to be a mess. And then the work comes it's in the rewrite. It's like that's where the work
Yeah.
is in those second and third and fourth drafts.
Yeah, and absolutely, and you're right in what you say. That first draft, no one is going to see that besides you.
No.
It's just for you. It's just for you. It's not for anybody else. No one's ever going to see it. So be as crap and as embarrassing as possible, but just get it down on the page. Get
Yeah.
everything down on the page.
You can put all the
Yeah.
cliches in. Do
Yeah.
everything you need to do.
Mm.
All the like every obvious trope, you can throw it in there because it's just about.
Mm.
It's sometimes just about getting rid of the cobwebs as
Oh
well.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
do you know when you've stepped away from it for a while? Because it can happen, especially when you're writing. When you're in that flow of writing contracted books, and for me, like you're writing that first draft, and then you have to drop it because you got to go back and do maybe edits on the previous book or proofs or whatever, or you're now doing events, so it takes you away
Mm.
from your work. How do you get back into it? Are you able to do it easily? Because for me, I'll look at the screen. I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Like, I don't even remember writing this
Yeah.
first bit.
Yeah. I So up until now, I've tried to kind of work it so that I suppose I was working on something coming up to like the publication of Fair Play, knowing
Yeah.
that of course I would have to put it aside. So I kind of worked it so that I kind of had an inbuilt pause. I mean, normally if I'm writing on something, I will get it to a certain point and then I will put it away for at least
Mm,
a couple of weeks so that I can kind of come to it with fresh eyes. So I kind of treated the publication of Fair Play as my deadline and wrote up until then and then put it away. And so when I came back to it, like what I wanted from it is to be able to experience it with fresh eyes, kind of like forget it a little bit,
yeah.
so that then I can actually um, edit it and move on to the next drafts a little bit easier. So I've kind of worked it that way up until now. Now sometimes obviously things happen and you have kind of deadlines, um, and it can be a little bit tricky that first time when you're sitting back with it because you're kind of looking through your notes, being like, "What was I supposed to be doing with this chapter?" But
Because you
but
question
I
everything.
yes, yeah. But I think there is that kind of good thing of like actually stepping away from it, like having that bit of a break from yourself, because sometimes you'll hopefully come back and be like, actually it's in better shape than I thought, or I realized what the problems are and what my kind of to-do list is now
Yeah.
as well.
I did it with them. I always call it my secret project, even though my friend, it's not a secret. Not to my agents. Like I always call it my secret project. And there was a time I was away from it for quite a while. And when I went back to it, I think maybe beginning of, I got to work out when I delivered my last edit. So it might have been maybe April. So when I went back to it after April, and I was looking at it and I was like, this is all wrong. And this has
Mm,
been something I've been working on for like a year because I said I'd do it in between everything else because I haven't had a big block of time because I'm writing my contracted books. And I was like, this is all wrong. Like my whole approach to it is just wrong. And I was like, okay, I need to reorganize like everything, like characters, backstories, motivations. And it wasn't a scary thing because sometimes the
hmm.
break away from it is like actually it's like completely like taking all the dust off the window and seeing it properly for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an important part of the process, that little
Mm,
break, because it's so interesting that you came back to it and you saw it with fresh eyes and you
yeah,
thought, oh no, I've approached this totally the wrong way. But
yeah.
like, it's maybe at times a frustrating part of the process that you're thinking, God, I wish I had realized this maybe six
Oh, I
months
wish
ago.
I'd known
But
it 6 months ago.
yeah,
It would be
yeah.
finished. It would be so finished. Instead, I'm like,
But
crap. I got to go
I
back to the beginning, but it's fine.
yeah, I can't tell you how many days I have worked an entire day. I have written a whole section. I've gone over it. I've edited. Like I've worked out the thing, and it's like 4:30, and I realize, oh no,
No.
I've come up with a much better way of doing this, or actually I've realized how this doesn't work. So my entire day's work is going to be scrapped, And I justify it to myself by saying this is just part of the process. I wouldn't have had that revelation at Harvest 4 if I hadn't done all of this work. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's how I
No, it's
justify it to
not.
myself.
Because you're still saying to yourself, I wish I knew this at bloody 9 o'clock. I could have
Yeah,
saved
yeah.
myself the whole day. Right, Louise, we've been talking about fair play, so I'm going to ask you some questions about fair play. Would you like to tell the listeners of the conversation about your debut novel, Fair Play?
Yes, so Fair Play opens on New Year's Eve 2022, and it's a group of friends, and they've gathered in a very fancy Airbnb in the Irish countryside, partly to ring in the new year, but also it is their friend Benjamin's birthday the next day, New Year's Day. So they're enjoying themselves, they're dancing and drinking, and then they're also playing this murder mystery game that is devised by Benjamin's sister, Abigail.
Mhm.
Next morning, everyone wakes up except for Benjamin. And then the book splits into two, where on one hand, we are following Abigail in the weeks and the months after her mother's death and following her grief about his death. And on the other hand, Abigail is kind of suddenly staring in a murder mystery of her own with its own detective, and it's Watson and its suspects, and she is trying to figure out the clues around her mother's
Yeah.
death. So kind of in both these kind of parallel universes, she's trying to figure out what happened, trying to come to some sort of answer to what happened, but obviously in very different ways.
Okay. Right, I've got two questions that follow on from you telling us about your book. So the first one, did you face any challenges in writing Fair Play?
I think that because of the structure of it, I mean, there was a lot of work to be done outlining it, chopping it into kind of its smaller
Mm.
parts, and kind of figuring out, especially in that main part, you're going back and forth between these two worlds. So it was the kind of figuring out the exact chronology and making sure everything uh, made sense and that there was an arc in that middle section.
Yeah.
And I think as well, so the reason it's called Fair Play is because of the Fair Play rules, which were these rules that governed detective novels of the Golden Age. The idea that these were books that were kind of puzzles to write,
Yeah.
and you had these set of rules that you had to adhere to because as a reader, you should be able to read these books and figure out who the murderer is before the grand reveal. And so there was a bit of work to make sure that, like on the murder mystery side, everything did adhere to the rules and adhered to the kind of structure and the genre and the tropes as well of a detective novel.
Mm.
Even though it was like, I really love detective novels, so it was really good fun to write that as well,
Yeah.
even though it was a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Okay. And if you could spend an afternoon with any of your characters from Fair Play, whom would you choose and why?
I mean, maybe August Bell, who is the detective.
Yeah.
I'd say he has kind of some fun stories about murderers he's captured. He might be the best one to spend time with. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So our last final set of questions. Louise, are you an introvert or extrovert or a hybrid of the two?
I'm an introvert, definitely.
Mm. But
Yeah.
you manage the social side well, or does it take a
Yes.
lot of work?
It has taken a lot of work. I've gotten to a point where I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
But I think really I'm an introvert. Yeah.
So what challenge or experience, and I always say it can be good or bad, so you don't have to dig up trauma, but what challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most?
I don't know if there's kind of one incident. I think there's kind of with anything, like it's an accumulation of everything
Yeah.
that's kind of happened in your life. It's kind of difficult to kind of name one thing, and it's also difficult to kind of um to pinpoint kind of like why I make decisions now, or why I live my life in a certain way. And it's probably a lot of kind of stuff that is just happening over a period of time,
Yeah.
that is kind of informed now how I live my life.
It's like that inspiration question, isn't it? It's like, what was it?
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
yeah,
very rarely one specific
yes.
thing. It's an accumulation of things. Okay, so if you could, I have no idea how old you are, so I'm asking this question, but if you could go back to when you're 25 years old, and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think there's this kind of idea that I've realized recently enough that you should um, stop waiting for your life to happen. This is your
Yeah.
life. Like, you are living your life right now, and there's no kind of my life will begin when X, Y, and Z happens, and you're gonna do this and do that. This is it. This is your life. And I think I wish maybe I kind of realized that a little bit earlier
Yeah.
as well.
I
You're
used to
kind of
say
putting
that.
off things.
Yeah, I mean, I say it a lot, and I used to say it a lot even before all of this happened. Is that sometimes you spend so much time, or you can do, waiting for every single component and every single piece to slip into place, and you're like, well, I need to do this, I need to have that, I need to have X amount of money in the bank before I can do this next move. And sometimes if you keep waiting for all of those things to happen and to fall into line, you're never going to do it. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you just simply just have to start,
Yeah.
and at some point the life you actually want, it will start speeding ahead of the life that you're actually living, and you're able to do what you want. So
Yeah.
I always think that's good advice. Okay, so what is your non-writing tip for writers? I always say it could be go for a walk, drink water.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, I think going for a walk. Like, I go for a walk like most days. I think that's like a really, really important part. I think
Yeah.
it's important part of writing as well. Is going for a walk. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's like different parts to the walking. It can be, for me, I do my morning walk because in the beginning it was purely like health reasons. Like, I have a bad back.
Mm.
I have scoliosis. I'm going to sit at my desk all day. My back is going to be a mess at the end of it. So in the morning, I make sure like I walk and do my exercise and stuff. And at some points, it's because I'm staring at the screen. I'm like, I need to run away. I cannot make this work. Let me just put my
Yeah.
trainers
Yeah.
on. I'm
Yeah.
going for a walk. So there's so many different motivations behind it. And finally, Louise, where can listeners find you online?
They can't. I am not on any social media.
None at all.
No, I'm not. No,
So how are you even got an Amazon profile?
I don't.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So we're just gonna have to do old school. Let me think. I was gonna say carrier pigeons, let us to your
Telegrams. Yeah.
telegrams, smoke signals, and letters to your agent. They can
Yes.
find you
Yeah.
that way. Emails to your agent and your
Yeah.
publicist.
Prime agent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
your publishers? We'll do it we'll do it that way. Who are your publishers?
So in the UK it's Picador, and in the US it's Harper.
There you go. This is how we can find Louise Hegarty. Just find her through her publishers. And that just leads me to say, Louise Hegarty, thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
You're welcome.